And without further ado, I would like to invite Jan Brecke on stage. He is a executive coach with vast experience and leadership across many industries, starting with UBS, Bayersdorf, Daimler, etc. He is helping the senior management to transform the companies, also in respect of cultures. And I'm very happy to have you here on stage, Jan, with the topic of the keynote speech, Transforming Automotive Companies by Changing their Corporate Culture.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for having me. My name is Jan Brecke. I'm a psychologist, but I also studied business administration, and I had the pleasure to work 15 years in bigger corporates like UBS, Daimler, GE, Bayersdorf, and Deutsche Bank, and was typically heading HR functions like talent development or leadership development. And I see some great friends here also. It's wonderful to be in Frankfurt. Anders invited me to speak today about something because I have done a transformation project for one bigger automotive corporate. And I first have to ask you, who is here from automotive corporates, really? Great, thanks. There must be more, I'm pretty sure. Who's from Volkswagen? One. Who's from Daimler? One. Who's from BMW? Porsche? Audi? Okay, sorry, I can't talk. Okay, I have my own business now for 2 years, and I'm doing about 70% of my time executive coaching, but I help 30% of my time transforming bigger corporates into a modern corporate culture. That means, I mean, leadership in the digital age means something totally different than we had 10, 20 years ago. And I don't know the exact formula, but I'm trying to look into how do we need to shape this. And I published a book 2 years ago about, it's German, So wollen Top-Talente arbeiten with the Frankfurt Allgemeine Zeitung. And after I published this, I was approached by a huge automotive corporate to talk about, we would like to transform our corporate culture. Would you like to help us? Exclusively. I said no. Because all the time, 100%, probably 60 or 70 hours, I'm not sure if I'm the right guy for this. But we had our talks, and I had lots of talks, I mean, with the most responsible guys, I mean, with the board, etc. And I realized how seriously they had taken it. And the typical thing, like for everybody, from these board members, typical DAX-Vorstände, they have been to Silicon Valley. And they woke up. They found out there is something new, something has changed. And for this bigger corporate, I mean, typically they are premium, they are arrogant, engineering driven, so that means no mistakes, no failure culture. Totally different than something they had in mind for a change. And I was thinking, no fucking way, I don't go here. I don't want to. But I realized especially how the CEO and some other board members were extremely eager to change that, and they meant it so seriously, they said, okay, let's do it. And I would talk about it. I'm not allowed to give too much details, but it might be something that also other corporates, not only automotives, can use. What we did there was something we invited. I was a project leader for this thing. We invited 150 top managers from this corporate to help us to shape the corporate culture, what kind of game changers we would like to have in 2020, and what should be the right leadership principles. And I would say it was a marketing story as well, an internal marketing story, because we had more than 1,000 applicants, only from leaders who wanted to help to shape this corporate. And it was, I mean, there was a big wave coming. So we hired an external agency to really look at the content, what people wrote had to answer 5 questions why they would be the right persons to help shaping the culture, and there was a motivation letter that everybody had to write. We hired an external agency to help us really to find the right guys, and we had clear diversity criteria, so females or gender, all different regions, all different business units, so from everywhere. But this meant the German male team head from one little town was not in favor, so we tried to bring as many internationals into this project. We started with a huge kick-off day where all board members saved their agenda for the whole day. That was amazing. It was absolutely amazing, and we had fantastic speeches there where the CEO meant, you ask for rules? There are no rules. You can tell us everything you want. We take it damn seriously. Tell us what we need to change. And this is a confident humility that I'd never seen before from such a proud culture. So we kicked it off with that. After that, we had built 8 different groups. And within these groups, we also simulated how the work of the future should look like. So we had built the internal social media was used as news groups, etc. They published something within their groups, but also for the 1,000 people who had applied. It was important to me that we made use of everybody in the company who was interested. So the 1,000 people that had applied, but also the other about 100,000 people who might somehow be interested. There was a huge communication campaign. So these groups worked together discreetly in their news groups rooms because they were everywhere around the world, and it was clear that they would only meet once for 3 days. Within these 3 days, they should find out what could be the game changers, but we also had a lot of problems that, wow, the first time it works. we had a lot of problems that are coming out if you change the culture and if you change the hierarchy. I realized pretty soon that the board was much further ahead than the level 1 managers because they wanted to stick to their power. If you change the corporate culture and say, okay, we want to have less hierarchies, etc., there was a huge fear within the whole company. And I knew why I didn't want to do it before, although this is a fantastic blueprint, I mean, for my book and trying it out. Does it really work, etc. But I mean, there was so much influencing, and influencing is a nice way of saying that, a lot of threats also, people who want to be involved, certainly. And these old power and hierarchy that is from the past, we realized this especially in this transformation phase. So then the groups met in famous cities like Rio, Sao Paulo, London, everywhere around the world, and found out about the game changers and brought their stuff together. They shared their results together, and then we had one integration workshop where we brought together all the results. Very secretly, only these groups were allowed to see the results. We prepared a meeting with the board, and then there was a presentation from 2 members of each group to the board. I can say that the board realized 80% of the content that was prepared and presented. They were totally fond of it. And I mean, there were 8 big game changers that they found out. Example given, one is ridiculous. I mean, 360 feedback for the first time was something they wanted to implement. Very nice. There was, but one other thing was pretty important, that they recommended that a decision should only be made 2 levels above the decision preparer. And this is a huge difference. If you have typically 6 or 7 hierarchy levels, this takes so much time. But in this case, I mean, they were much faster. They wanted to create agile speedboats. And they also found out, I mean, how do you prepare a failure culture? You definitely shouldn't make mistakes within the production line. You shouldn't, not ideal. But you need within research and development in innovation areas, you need people who are allowed to make mistakes. And this is why we created ambidexterity. We had areas, about 20% of all levels, who should be in these innovation areas, and their jobs will rotate and are rotating, so that every 4 or 6 months they come into a different project. So the first time also, I mean, they are mingling the different business units and sometimes also the different board levels, etc., and functions. So this is something, this is, for them it was very, very new. And so, a lot of other stuff. They also created a new leadership model, and from what I see at the moment, they are on a very good way. On the other hand, if you ask me now, have they changed massively? I would say only 10% of the population within this company feel it. But I would say in 3 or 4 or 5 years, you will really see a difference. To me, it's a great transformation process. I would repeat it nearly everywhere again, because I mean, asking top management and I mean all the different levels within the corporate culture, what should be our next corporate culture is the right one. It's much better than hiring McKinsey or Boston Consulting, because I have to clean up all the time after the strategy consultants come in. Because I mean, they don't take care of the culture, not really. These are strategy slides. So this is the right approach, because there is so much knowledge within this company that should be used. It's more motivating, certainly. You will leave some people behind. You cannot involve everybody. But it's I would say an 80% pretty good approach, and would recommend it to everybody. Thank you so much.
Jan, thank you very much for those insights into transforming corporate cultures.